11. Beyond subject and object. All we know is experiencing. Just check, first of all, that this is true of yourself. Range over your experience, your current experience, as well as any remembered or imagined experience. And ask yourself if you have ever known or could ever know anything other than experiencing. See clearly that we never actually know a mind, body, or world as they are normally conceived. That is, as objects existing independently of awareness in their own right. We just know experiencing. We just know our experience of these apparent things, but not the things themselves. Look at the mind. All we find is experiencing. Look at the body, in whatever condition we find it. All we find is experiencing. Look at the world. All we know of the so-called world is experiencing. Now ask yourself, what is it that knows experiencing? Whatever it is that knows experiencing is what we call I, myself. Go to experiencing and see if you can locate a part of experiencing, a separate subject or knower, that does the knowing, that knows it, or whether the entirety of experiencing is pervaded by the knowing of it. In fact, can we separate experiencing from the knowing of it, or are they identical? By the word experiencing, I mean thinking, imagining, feeling, sensing, seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. All these are modulations of experiencing. See that whatever it is that knows experiencing pervades it intimately. There is no part of experiencing that is separate from the knowing of it, just as there is no part of an image that is separate from the screen. The image may seem to be something other than the screen, such as a landscape or a street. but in fact it is always only the screen. Likewise, experiencing may seem to consist of a multiplicity and diversity of objects, known or witnessed by a separate subject, a separate self. But in fact, our experience is always and only made of the knowing of it. That knowing is our self. It is what we refer to as I. I is the equivalent of the screen in the image. All we know is the knowing of experience, and that knowing is our self. It is only thinking, which is, of course, only made of experiencing or knowing, that says that experiencing is not made of one seamless, intimate substance, but rather that it is made of two essential ingredients. One part, me, the separate self, that knows, and all the rest, objects, others, and the world, that are known. In this way, thinking apparently divides the seamless intimacy of experiencing or knowing into a subject and an object, an inside self and an outside object, other, or world, essentially separate from each other and joined together by an act of knowing, feeling, or perceiving. But this apparent division of the seamless intimacy of all experience takes place in imagination alone, in thought alone. It never really happens. There is no separate individual knower of experience, located in or as the body. And there is no separate, independently existing object, other, or world that is known. These two, these apparent two, the subject and the object of experience, are superimposed by thought onto the reality of experience itself. The reality of experience itself is made out of one indivisible, intimate substance, pure experiencing or knowing. Once thought has arisen and apparently divided the seamless intimacy of experiencing or pure knowing into two parts, a separate I and a separate object, other, or world, an illusory self, the separate subject of experience, comes into apparent existence. Most of the subsequent thoughts, feelings, activities, and relationships that arise do so on behalf of this imaginary self, which thought has abstracted from seamless, indivisible experiencing or pure knowing. This separate I that thought imagines we are seems to stand apart from experience, witnessing it from a distance, choosing those parts that it wants to hold on to and those that it wants to get rid of. So this separate I is always negotiating experience, trying to get from the apparently outside world what it needs for its own survival and happiness, and trying to push away, resist, or get rid of everything that doesn't conform to its belief about how things should be, or that threatens the survival of its own illusory identity. In other words, this imaginary separate I is always in a state of negotiation, always in more or less subtle conflict with the rest of the world and with all objects and others, holding on to some parts and getting rid of others, resisting some parts, seeking others. In fact, this imaginary separate self lives in a state of resistance and seeking. But what about experiencing itself? Does that, pure experiencing itself, ever resist or seek? Experiencing cannot resist itself or seek anything other than itself, for it only ever knows or comes across itself. Other than the thought that imagines a separate self, there is no resistance or seeking inherent in experience, in just the same way that a screen never resists the movie that appears on it. One of the characters in the movie may go on an adventure of seeking and resisting, but the screen itself never goes anywhere. It never resists the current appearance, never tries to change the current appearance for another of its own imagining. It is so totally, intimately one with whatever appears within or upon it, that it cannot separate out a part of itself from itself as an independent knower, thinker, feeler, lover, actor, doer, decider, perceiver, or chooser. So insofar as we imagine ourselves to be a separate, independent self, we have one essential choice to make. Either to stand as that separate self, or to explore the reality of our experience, and to stand as the knowing that pervades it, that is intimately one with every appearance, that is unable to resist any experience, just like the screen is unable to resist an image. The imaginary self is always negotiating experience with one aim in mind: to find peace, happiness, love, and security. It is always rejecting the now in favor of a peace, happiness, love, and security that it imagines it will find in the future. It does not realize that the only security there is the now. The only security there is to live as the knowing that pervades all experience, that is all experience. This knowing is the substance or reality of all experience. We know nothing other than the knowing of our experience. It knows nothing other than itself. You, I, this knowing or aware presence, intimately pervade all experience, like a screen pervades the image. Like the screen, you, I, this knowing or aware presence, cannot be touched, harmed, modified, destroyed, altered or changed in any way by the particular characteristics of any experience. We are totally safe. We, this knowing or aware presence, are totally safe, right at the heart of all experience. The only place we are truly safe is at the heart of experience. Strangely, the imaginary self is always trying to get away from experience, always trying to find peace, happiness, love, and security in a future. And that very search perpetuates its fear and vulnerability. The very activity of seeking these in the future veils the true peace, happiness, love, and security that lie at the heart of all experience. There is no security for the character in the movie. The only security is the screen. Strangely, the character is only made of the screen. Yet it thinks it is a separate self, endowed with free will, moving around in time and space. That belief is its suffering. The screen is the only security. Our self, the light of pure knowing or awareness that pervades all experience, that is all experience, that shines in the midst of all experience, is peace itself, is happiness itself, is love itself. It is the only true security. Our self, the light of pure knowing or awareness, is shining right in the midst of all appearances, not hidden behind them, in the same way that the screen is always shining in full view, whatever the story that is being played in the movie. Right here and now, in this current experience, thoughts, images, feelings, bodily sensations and perceptions of the world. We are the knowing of these. In fact, we never actually come across the objects of the body, mind and world that thought normally conceives. We only know knowing. It only knows itself. All we know of a body, mind, or world is pure knowing, and we are that. It is I, our substance, the intimacy of our own aware or knowing being, which makes up the entirety of our experience. Just like water makes up the ocean and the waves. The water is always safe. It doesn't matter how peaceful or stormy the sea is. It is only unsafe for an object that would be separate from the water. Such an object would be threatened by a storm. But the water itself is always safe, always at one with the motion of the sea, and yet undisturbed by its movement. Our self, this knowing being, the knowing that is, the I that I am, is the substance of all experience, however turbulent experience may be. We are the knowing of all experience, the knowing that is all experience, but is not any particular experience. We are intimately one with all experience as its substance, and at the same time totally independent and free of its particular qualities. We don't have to become this knowing being. We don't have to work hard at ceasing to be a separate self and suddenly becoming this knowing, pervasive being. It is what we always and already are. We have never ceased to be this pure knowing which pervades all experience, which is all experience. It is only thought that abstracts a separate self from this seamless, indivisible intimacy, and creates as a result an apparently separate knower, thinker, feeler, lover, actor, doer, decider, perceiver, or chooser. Most of our lives are spent thinking, feeling, acting, perceiving and relating on behalf of this fictitious self, always negotiating circumstances in order to secure peace, happiness and love in the future. We do not see that the very activity of resisting the now and seeking happiness in the future is itself the veiling of the true peace and happiness that lives shining at the heart of all experience, as our very own self. Try to move away from experience. Without thinking, is it possible to resist the now? Where is the future, apart from the thought of it? It is only an imaginary thought-made self that ventures out of the now into an apparent future. But our self, the light of pure knowing, never leaves the now. We cannot leave the now. We are the now. Our self, the light of pure knowing, is inherently without resistance, always at peace at the heart of all experience, as the heart of all experience, at the heart of the now. Thought is like a subtitle, commentating on a movie. The movie carries on, irrespective of the subtitles. The subtitles are superimposed on the movie. All the subtitles describe are the objects, events, and activities that are taking place in the movie. The subtitles neglect the screen. They cannot see the screen. They do not know that the screen is present. They do not realize that the screen is in fact the entire substance of the movie. They just describe the individuals, the objects, the events, and the activities in the movie, but neglect its substance, its reality. Although the subtitles are made out of the screen, they cannot know it, let alone describe it. For the subtitles, the screen is non-existent. All the subtitles know or describe are the apparent objects. But the objects are only real from the illusory point of view of the subtitles. They are real as apparently existing objects for the subtitles, but not for the screen. In the same way, thought only knows and describes the apparent objects of our experience. People, places, objects, situations, circumstances, and events. Thought cannot know the knowing that pervades all experience, that is all experience. Although thought is itself made of that knowing alone. So thought, which is itself made out of pure knowing, imagines that knowing is not one seamless, intimate substance. Thought abstracts a subject and an object from the seamless intimacy of all experience, made only of pure knowing, and thereby apparently dividing it into a knower and the known. In other words, just as a screen has the capacity to appear as an image with which it seems to veil itself from itself. So our self, the light of pure knowing, has the capacity within itself to take the shape of a thought, from whose subsequent point of view its very own light of pure knowing seems to be veiled from itself. However, from the true and only point of view of pure knowing, this veiling never actually takes place. The apparent veiling, obscuring, or forgetting of our true nature, and the subsequent loss of peace, happiness, and love, take place in thought, and are later substantiated in feelings at the level of the body. In this way, an imaginary inside self grows roots in the body, so that before long we not only think that we are a separate, temporary, limited, and located self, but more importantly we feel that I, the light of pure knowing, am such a self, located in and as the body. All that is created in the imagination. I, the knowing with which all experience is known, am not located inside a body or a mind. I am made out of pure knowing, pure awareness. I am not located somewhere. All apparent somewheres are made out of me, located in me. Can you taste the peace and freedom that are available when we cease thinking, feeling, acting, and relating on behalf of a separate, temporary, limited and located self, and simply know ourselves as the knowing that pervades all experience, that is one with all experience, the substance of all experience, but at the same time independent of it, free of it, uncoloured by it, just as the screen is intimately one with the image, but unchanged or unmoved by it. These two qualities, freedom and intimacy or love, are the two qualities of this pure knowing which is ourself. Intimately one with all experience, the substance of all experience, and, at the same time, unchangeable, unmovable, indestructible, and which can never be hurt or harmed. Feel this freedom and intimacy at the heart of all experience, which means this very experience now. There is no part of our experience that is not intimately pervaded by ourself, the light of pure knowing, luminous, empty awareness. In fact, experience is not pervaded by the light of pure knowing, like a sponge is pervaded by water. There are not two things there in the first place, experience and the light of pure knowing, one to be pervaded by the other. All there is to experience is knowing. Our self, the light of pure knowing, is knowing, being, and, because it never knows or comes in contact with anything other than itself, loving itself alone, in and as the totality of all experience. Live as the totality of experience, not as a fragment, not as a separate self, located in and as one little corner of experience, called the body-mind. Live as the light of pure knowing that is the entirety of experience, intimately one with it, utterly free of it. We cannot be harmed there. We resist nothing there. We seek nothing there. We touch all experience intimately as that. But no experience touches us. As the light of pure knowing, we know nothing, no thing, but are the substance or reality of all seeming things. We know nothing other than ourself. It knows nothing other than itself. And, as such, we are love itself. Thank you.